The Galactic Transport Hub was a cacophony of noise, a vibrant tapestry of cultures blinking, beeping, and buzzing in a deceptive harmony. Maria Santos leaned against the cool metal of her bus, a Model XJ29, known for its resilience as much as its speed. The air smelled faintly of ozone and fried alien snacks from nearby kiosks, a reminder that even on a busy day, the bus was just one small part of a much larger universe. Her bus, suspended in a bright, open bay, was nearly full, each seat occupied by various aliens, thin, leathery-skinned beings from Targoth 7, a floating, gelatinous form that only communicated through vibrations, and a cluster of bright-eyed, furry creatures from the planet Nimbari. They all filled the bus with an air of impatience, their eyes darting back to the entrance, waiting for that one last passenger who seemed to be taking an eternity. Maria tapped her fingers against the bus's control panel, her knuckles brushing against the worn-out buttons. A quick glance at the chronometer confirmed her worries. The scheduled departure time had come and gone. "Hey, we're ready to go whenever you are," she called out into the metallic abyss of the bus, her voice strained with the effort to mask her frustration. The Targothian passenger, who had been attempting to decipher a communication device, looked up, his eyes glowing a faint orange. "Is it always like this? Waiting for one?" he asked, his voice like a low rumble. "Not usually, but it feels like today is special," Maria replied with an exhausted smile. Who was she to complain? Her job was to drive, not to dictate the whims of time. Yet each delay felt like an erasure of her importance, each moment of waiting echoing deeper into her consciousness. As the minutes ticked by, the hub outside her bus window transformed into a frenzy of movement. Beings of all shapes darted about, some gliding gracefully like mist on a summer day, while others marched with a purpose that rattled the ground beneath their feet. She was a silent observer, an unseen cog in the machinery of life traveling through this cosmic marketplace. The thoughts circled in her head, unbidden and heavy. What did it mean to be an essential link when she felt so invisible? Suddenly, the bus doors slid open with a quiet hiss, and a small, frazzled figure stumbled inside. It was a young Nimbari child, her bright fur matted with snow from a recent flurry outside the hub. The child looked up at Maria, wide-eyed, clutching a tiny, colorful backpack trembling on her back. "I thought you were leaving." Maria's heart softened as she knelt to the child's level, brushing a stray tuft of the girl's fur back behind her ear. "Not without you, kiddo. Are you ready for a little adventure?" The girl grinned, her mouth a perfect crescent that radiated excitement. "Yes," she squeaked, jumping up into an empty seat. Maria stifled a chuckle at the girl's enthusiasm, the tension in her muscles loosening just a bit. She couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her role. As many might overlook her job, it was this child's joy that reminded her of the impact she had on the lives of those around her. "All right, everyone, buckle up," Maria shouted, her spirits lifting as she shifted the bus into gear. The engine hummed, a sound familiar and comforting, and she felt a rush of energy flood her veins. The weight of waiting dissipated, replaced by a purpose that felt anew. As the bus glided out of the bay and onto the main thoroughfare, the sights of the Galactic Transport Hub burst into full view. Vendors shouted, competing to draw customers to their stalls, selling everything from starfruit to nanocircuitry. Maria maneuvered the bus through the chaos, her senses alive with the sights and sounds of 1,000 different worlds converging into one vibrant place. "Are we going to see all the planets?" the little Nimbari asked, her voice a melody above the hum of the engine. "Just this one for now," Maria replied, her eyes catching a glimpse of an enormous digital clock towering over the terminal, counting down to the next big event, the Galactic Peace Summit. "But soon, maybe one day, you'll visit every star." The child's eyes glimmered with wonder, and Maria remembered her own dreams of exploration, of visiting the planets she only heard about through stories. The galaxy was a big, beautiful place, and she was fortunate to be in the mix of it all, even as a bus driver. As they passed under floating communication screens broadcasting news, snippets of conversations buzzed around her. "The council is in turmoil," one voice echoed, anxious and urgent. "If the trade routes are blocked, we'll face a crisis." Maria caught parts of the conversation, her curiosity piqued. It was a seemingly innocuous statement, but it weighed heavily on her mind. Could it impact her bus routes? It was dizzying to think about the implications of political turmoil sweeping across the galaxy, but she pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the joyful energy of the passengers in her bus. But as she drove, she couldn't shake the sense of urgency she felt. Even in the midst of laughter, she sensed the disquiet beneath the surface. With each congested street and every frustrated honk from nearby vehicles, a collective anxiety seemed to swirl, tightening like a noose, reaching even her in her humble position. It was just a feeling, but as the Nimbari child pointed out landmarks, Maria didn't realize how tightly fate began weaving their paths together. The bus flew past the bustling hub, where lives intertwined, and unbeknownst to her, the galaxy began to take notice of a simple human bus driver who made a difference, one passenger at a time. With every stop and every passenger, Maria Santos would soon learn that her job was more than a mere routine, it was a lifeline. And as whispers of crisis floated through the air, she couldn't help but feel that her role would soon become more vital than she ever imagined. "Get ready, everyone," she announced, her heart racing with anticipation for what was to come. "We're about to make some memories." As the bus rolled smoothly into the main thoroughfare of the Galactic Transport Hub, Maria felt the familiar rhythm of her driving settle into her bones. The hum of the engine was comforting, a reminder that she was indeed steering through this vibrant, chaotic universe. But the moment of peace was short-lived as the bus came to a halt at the next stop. The translucent doors hissed open, and she glanced out, scanning the flow of passengers. In the midst of the bustling crowd, a figure caught her attention, a teenage girl with bright turquoise skin, her wild hair a riot of colors that seemed to shift like the auroras of distant planets. The girl stood at the edge of the bus stop, her expression a mix of defiance and uncertainty, as if she were wrestling with an internal battle. Maria raised an eyebrow. This might be the last passenger. "Hey, you coming?" Maria called out, her voice breaking through the din. The girl hesitated for a heartbeat, then sprinted toward the bus, her mismatched sneakers flapping against the ground. "Sorry, she panted as she climbed aboard, her eyes darting around the bus before settling on Maria. "I didn't think I'd make it." Maria offered her a half-smile, noting the girl's wild energy. "Buckle up, we're off to a good start now." She shifted the bus back into gear and pulled away from the stop, merging into the river of traffic. As the bus navigated the chaotic streets, Maria caught a glimpse of the girl in her rearview mirror. The teen was fidgeting with the straps of her backpack, her gaze flickering between the other passengers and the window, where the vibrant world outside rushed by in a blur of colors and shapes. "What's your name?" Maria asked, breaking the silence that had settled over the bus. "Lyrics," the girl replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned her attention to the window, watching the passing scenery as if it held secrets only she could decipher. "Lyrics, huh? Nice to meet you. What brings you to the hub?" Maria pressed, intrigued by the girl's demeanor. "I'm looking for something," she said, still fixated on the view outside. "Something for me." Maria nodded, sensing a deeper story hidden beneath the surface. Big aspirations for a young traveler. "What's your plan?" Lyrics finally turned to face her, an ember of defiance sparking in her eyes. "I'm not like everyone else in my family. They want me to be something I'm not, and I can't do it anymore." Maria felt a pang of empathy. "You think you'll find what you're looking for in the hub?" "Maybe," Lyrics said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I overheard some things. There's talk of something brewing in the hub, a conflict. Something that could change everything for us." "Conflict?" Maria echoed, her interest piqued. "What do you mean?" Lyrics leaned closer, her voice barely above a murmur. "I heard some older Nimbari talking about how the council is planning to tighten control over the younger generations. They want to make sure everyone adheres to their rules. But I want to break free from that." Maria's heart raced as she processed the implications of Lyrics' words. This was more than just idle chatter, it was a glimpse into a brewing storm that could affect not only the Nimbari but potentially others in the hub. "You're brave for sharing that," Maria said, her tone sincere. "But you know, sometimes doing the right thing comes with a price." "I'd rather pay the price than live a lie," Lyrics responded with fierce determination. "I just want to be myself, whatever that means." Maria found herself smiling at the girl's tenacity. "That's a worthy goal, but it's not easy. Sometimes it takes more than just courage." Lyrics nodded. "I know, but it's better than being stuck in a mold that doesn't fit." As they continued their conversation, Maria couldn't help but feel inspired by the girl's conviction. It reminded her of her own struggles, the moments of feeling invisible in a vast universe. "You know, I used to think my job was just about driving a bus," Maria admitted, her voice softening. "But now, I see it's about connecting with people like you." "Really?" Lyrics looked at her, her interest piqued. "Yeah," Maria continued, "every person that steps onto this bus has a story. And sometimes, we get to be part of those stories, if only for a moment. It's like we're all travelers in one way or another." Lyrics smiled for the first time, a genuine warmth breaking through her previously guarded exterior. "I like that. Maybe you're not just a bus driver then." Maria chuckled lightly, the sound almost swallowed by the bus's engine. "Maybe I'm more than that. We all are." Suddenly, the bus came to a halt at another stop, and several beings boarded, 3 large, towering figures with scales that shimmered in the ambient light. They settled into seats, their presence casting an imposing shadow over the bus. Maria felt the atmosphere shift, the energy in the air thickened with an unspoken tension. "Those guys look serious," Lyrics whispered, her eyes wide. "Yeah, they seem to be from a warrior clan," Maria replied, scanning the newcomers. "Let's hope they're in a good mood." As the bus resumed its journey, Maria glanced at Lyrics, who was now observing the new passengers with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Stay alert, okay? It's essential to know who you're dealing with in a place like this. The girl nodded, her earlier bravado tempered by the reality of their surroundings. You think they're involved in the conflict? Possibly, Maria said, her mind racing with possibilities. But we can't jump to conclusions. Let's keep our ears open. With the conversation flowing freely between them, Maria felt a growing bond with Lyrics. The girl's courage ignited a spark within her, reminding her of the importance of purpose and connection. As they navigated through the bustling hub, their lives intertwined in a moment, both sensing that the journey ahead would hold greater challenges than either could foresee. The bus glided through the Galactic Transport Hub, each stop revealing new faces and stories, but Maria and Lyric shared a mutual understanding, a secret alliance formed through their shared aspirations and fears. Little did they know that the brewing conflict would soon demand their courage in ways they could never imagine, setting the stage for a confrontation that would ripple through the very fabric of their lives. The bus glided through the bustling streets of the Galactic Transport Hub, the low hum of the engine contrasting with the vibrant clamors surrounding them. Maria's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as they approached a crowded intersection. Lyric sat in the seat behind her, still fidgeting, her earlier bravado tempered by the chaos outside. As the bus stopped at a red light, Maria noticed a commotion up ahead. A group of alien protesters had gathered, their colorful banners waving vigorously in the air. The words were unfamiliar, but the intensity of their shouts cut through the ambient noise. Maria squinted, trying to discern the situation unfolding before them. What's going on? Lyrics asked, leaning forward, her turquoise skin shimmering under the bus's interior lights. Looks like a demonstration, Maria replied, her curiosity piqued. Let's see what they're protesting about. As the light turned green, she eased the bus forward, keeping an eye on the crowd. The protesters were a mix of various species, their faces painted with determination and urgency. Some held signs that read "Fair Transit for All," while others shouted slogans in a chorus that echoed through the hub. Maria's heart raced. She could feel the tension radiating from the group. Do you think it's about the new policies? Lyrics asked, her voice low but charged with energy. Maria nodded. It could be. I've heard some whispers about unfair transportation regulations. They might be feeling the pressure. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the air as a sign was knocked over. A nearby vendor hastily packed up his stall, his alien snacks spilling onto the ground. The mood shifted palpably, and the crowd began to surge forward, pushing against the police barricades set up to contain them. Should we call this in? Maria wondered aloud, glancing at the other passengers in the bus. They were all watching, some with concern, others with a mix of fear and intrigue. No, Lyrics said, her eyes brightening with a fierce light. We shouldn't just watch. We should do something. Maria hesitated. She had always viewed her job as a simple service, a means of transportation without getting involved in the larger issues plaguing their society. What do you mean, do something? She asked, intrigued but cautious. Maybe we can help them. We could let them know that they have support, or help them spread their message. Lyrics exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. Maria felt a stirring in her chest, a mixture of fear and excitement. The thought of stepping into the fray was daunting, but Lyrics's conviction ignited something in her. You really believe that? Maria asked, curious about the girl's fervor. Of course. They're fighting for their rights, and if we just sit here, we're part of the problem. Lyrics leaned closer, her voice a passionate whisper. If you drive us closer, maybe we can make some noise too. Maria glanced in the rearview mirror, studying the faces of her passengers. A few looked anxious, while others appeared to be contemplating the scene unfolding outside. Her heart pounded as she weighed her options. The protesters were risking a lot, perhaps she could be part of something bigger. All right, she said, her resolve building. Let's get closer. With a quick flick of her wrist, Maria maneuvered the bus toward the edge of the protest. The sounds of chanting grew louder as she turned off the engine, the bus now a temporary island among the waves of demonstrators. Lyrics' excitement was palpable. We should get out there. We can show them we care. Maria took a deep breath, stepping into the unknown. Okay, but let's be smart about it. We need to be careful. As they exited the bus, the air was thick with fervor. The protesters were in a frenzy, rallying around the speakers who were passionately discussing the transportation policies that were making it harder for their kind to travel freely. Maria felt the energy washing over her, and for the first time, she was not just a bystander, she was part of something vibrant. Lyrics bounced on her feet, her eyes scanning the crowd. Look, they're handing out flyers. We could help distribute them. All right, Maria replied, feeling a surge of adrenaline. She joined Lyrics, grabbing a stack of brightly colored flyers emblazoned with bold letters proclaiming equality in transit. As they began to hand out the flyers, Maria felt a strange sense of empowerment. With each flyer that left her hand, she was not just spreading a message, she was connecting with the people around her, each grateful smile a reminder that she was part of something greater. "Thank you. This means a lot," one of the protesters said, a robust alien with shimmering scales reflecting the sunlight. Maria smiled back, realizing she was contributing to a cause much bigger than herself. It was exhilarating, and for the first time in a long while, she felt alive, her mundane routine as a bus driver fading into the background. As the protest grew louder, Maria and Lyrics moved closer to the rallying point. The speakers were addressing the crowd with urgency, their voices rising above the chants. "We will not be silenced. Our rights matter." Lyrics squeezed Maria's arm, her eyes wide with excitement. "This is amazing. Look how many people care." Maria nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "Yes, and we're part of it." But just as the excitement reached a fever pitch, a loud siren blared through the air. Maria spun around to see a group of enforcement officers approaching, their expressions grim. A wave of unease washed over the crowd as the officers began to advance toward the protesters. "Stay together," Maria shouted, instinctively reaching for Lyrics' hand. The tension escalated as the atmosphere shifted from jubilation to apprehension. Maria's heart raced as she watched the officers position themselves, their presence a stark reminder of the risks the protesters were taking. "What do we do?" Lyrics asked, her voice trembling slightly. Maria's mind raced. She knew that the protesters needed to maintain their composure. "We stick together and make sure everyone stays safe. We can't let fear stop us now." Lyrics' eyes sparkled with determination. "You're right. We can show them we're not afraid." As the officers moved closer, Maria felt a surge of courage. She was no longer just a bus driver, she was a part of this movement, standing shoulder to shoulder with those fighting for their rights. "Let's show them our strength," Maria shouted, raising her voice above the chaos. The crowd roared in response, a unified front against the encroaching authority. Maria felt a rush of adrenaline as the protesters stood tall, their voices rising in defiance. This was their moment, and she was proud to be part of it. With Lyrics by her side, Maria realized that she was no longer just observing the world around her, she was actively participating in its change, and for the first time, she felt truly empowered. As the tension thickened, she knew that whatever happened next, they were in it together. The atmosphere was electric as Maria stepped into the throng of protesters, her heart racing with an unfamiliar adrenaline. Lyrics bounded beside her, her turquoise skin glowing brighter in the sunlight filtering through the colorful banners. Maria felt a surge of determination wash over her. This wasn't just about transportation policies anymore, it felt personal, a chance to stand up for something greater than herself. "Let's find the leaders," Lyrics urged, her eyes wide with excitement. "They'll need support from someone like you." Maria nodded, looking around for the speakers who commanded the crowd's attention. She spotted a raised platform draped in a vibrant banner that read "Fair Transit for All." A grizzled alien with tentacle-like appendages gestured emphatically, his voice booming with authority as he spoke. "And we will not stand for the corporations exploiting our need to travel. We deserve transparency, we deserve equality." His words caused a ripple through the crowd, and Maria felt the energy surge around her. "I think we should talk to him," Maria said, pointing towards the speaker. "I want to know more about what's going on." Lyrics grinned. "Yeah, let's go." They squeezed their way through the crowd, the fervor of the protesters wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Maria could feel the weight of their hopes and frustrations, it was intoxicating. As they reached the front, the alien leader, whose name tag read Tharkesh, noticed them. "Human, you dare come here?" Tharkesh's voice, though filled with incredulity, had a note of curiosity. "I'm Maria Santos," she replied, trying to project confidence. "I'm a bus driver. I wanted to understand what's happening." Tharkesh blinked, clearly taken aback. "A bus driver? Here? You think you can just stroll into our fight for dignity?" "I'm not here to provoke," Maria said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm here because I believe in what you're fighting for. The new regulations are hurting everyone, humans and aliens alike." The crowd quieted slightly, their attention now on this unexpected exchange. Lyrics watched, her eyes sparkling with anticipation, while Maria felt the weight of their gazes. Tharkesh studied her, then motioned for her to step closer. "Then you should know the truth. This protest is about more than just unfair transit regulations. It's about a conspiracy involving the corporations that control the transport networks." Maria frowned. "What do you mean?" "Every time they alter the rules, they benefit themselves at the expense of those who rely on public transport. They've been using our struggles as a means to boost their profits, laying waste to our rights in the process." Tharkesh's voice grew more passionate, fueled by the anger radiating from the crowd. "They want to keep us divided, to make us think it's just about species or classes. But it's bigger than that. It's about freedom." The implications of his words hit Maria like a punch to the gut. She had always viewed her job as a simple service driving, picking up, and dropping off. But this revelation painted her role in a new light. So, what can we do? Varkesh leaned closer, his tentacles dancing in the air. We need allies. We need humans like you to voice our concerns, to amplify our message. Are you willing to help us? Maria's chest tightened with the gravity of the moment. Her hands had always been on the wheel, guiding people from one place to another, but now, she had the power to steer a movement. Yes, I want to help. What do you need? Speak to your people. Explain how these policies affect us all. We need to build bridges, not walls, Varkesh replied, the intensity in his eyes matching the urgency of the moment. Lyrics chimed in, and maybe we can organize a rally together. A human and alien coalition. Maria felt a swell of hope. That could work. We could show the corporations that we're not going to stay silent. Exactly, Varkesh exclaimed, his voice rising with enthusiasm. But time is of the essence. They're planning to enforce these new regulations next week. A wave of panic washed over Maria. Next week? But how can we mobilize the community in such a short time? Varkesh's expression softened. We'll need to start small. Gather your passengers, make them aware of the situation. You have a unique position as a bus driver. You interact with a diverse group every day. Inform them. Create a network. Maria nodded, a plan forming in her mind. I can do that. I can use my bus routes to spread the word. As the crowd erupted in cheers at Varkesh's words, Maria felt her confidence solidify. She was no longer just a bus driver, she was becoming a voice for change, an advocate for those who felt powerless. Let's get started, Maria said, turning to Lyrics. We have work to do. They raced back to the bus, the crowd's energy pulsing behind them. As Maria settled into her driver's seat, she felt a newfound purpose. The protest had opened her eyes to a larger world, a world where she could make a difference. Ready? Lyrics asked, her excitement bubbling over. Let's go, Maria replied, determination lacing her voice. She shifted the bus into gear and navigated through the sea of protesters, the engine roaring to life beneath her. As they drove away from the chaos, a sense of responsibility settled over Maria. She was about to enter a battle she had never anticipated, and she was determined to fight for a brighter future, not just for herself, but for everyone who relied on the transport systems to navigate their lives. The galaxy had taken notice, and Maria was ready to lead the charge. As Maria and Lyric stepped away from Varkesh, the excitement in the air was palpable, a buzzing current that surged through the crowd. They exchanged determined glances, both feeling the weight of the moment. They had a plan now, a chance to unite their worlds, and it began with gathering evidence. Let's head over to the break room at the bus depot, Maria suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. We can brainstorm how to reach out to other transport workers. If they're feeling the same way, we can create a solid base of support. Great idea. I've seen some of the shuttle pilots hanging out there, Lyrics replied, practically bouncing on her toes. They might have stories of their own. The two made their way through the dissipating crowd, the energy of the protest still echoing in their minds. As they arrived at the bus depot, the familiar scent of motor oil and coffee enveloped them, grounding them in a sense of purpose. Maria led the way to the break room, where a few other drivers were gathered, sipping their drinks and sharing stories of the day's events. Hey, everyone, Maria called out, her confidence growing. Can we have a quick meeting? We need to talk about something important. The chatter died down, and curious eyes turned toward her. Among the bus drivers was a burly man named Oscar, who had been with the transit system for over a decade. He was known for his gruff exterior but had a heart of gold. What's on your mind, Maria? Oscar asked, crossing his arms over his chest. Maria exchanged a glance with Lyrics, who gave her an encouraging nod. There's been a lot of unrest about the new transport policies. We were just at the protest, and it's clear that many of us are affected. We can't keep ignoring it. We need to come together to voice our concerns. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Lyrics jumped in, her enthusiasm contagious. And we need to gather evidence. If we can document our experiences and show how these changes are impacting service and safety, we can present a solid case to the transit authorities. Right, but how? Another driver, a young woman named Jenna, asked, her brow furrowed in concern. We don't want to jeopardize our jobs. Exactly, Oscar added. Corporate security is everywhere. They'd be watching us like hawks. Which is why we need to be smart about this, Maria replied, her voice steady. We gather information anonymously. We can share our experiences through encrypted channels, meet in smaller groups, and create a coalition that includes not just bus drivers but shuttle pilots and other transport workers. The room buzzed with conversation as the idea took hold. Maria could feel the momentum building, the unity among them as they collectively recognized the importance of their roles in the larger struggle. Let's start with a few testimonies, Lyrics suggested, her eyes sparkling with resolve. If we can get others to share their stories, we can compile them into a report that highlights all the ways these regulations are failing us and our passengers. Who's in? Maria asked, her heart pounding with anticipation. One by one, hands began to rise. Jenna was first. I'm in. I've seen passengers get stranded because the new schedules don't align. It's a disaster. Another driver, a quiet man named Theo, spoke up. I've had people complain about late pickups. It's not just frustrating, it's dangerous. As more voices chimed in, Maria felt a weight lift. They were no longer alone in their fight. Their collective dissatisfaction was a force that could not be ignored. Great! Maria exclaimed, her smile widening. Let's set up a private chat group to start sharing our experiences. We can meet regularly to discuss findings and strategize. As they began to draft their plan, however, Lyrics suddenly frowned. Wait, what about corporate security? They could be monitoring our communications. Good point, Oscar said. We'll need to be discreet. Use secure channels, or meet in person without mentioning anything sensitive. We can use public spaces, maybe even the park nearby. Exactly, Lyrics added. And we can create a code, something that keeps our messages safe from prying eyes. As they worked on the logistics, Maria felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was a step into uncharted territory. She glanced at Lyrics, who was animatedly discussing their next moves with Oscar. Their partnership was deepening, each of them bringing unique strengths to the table, Maria's experience as a driver and Lyrics' quick thinking and resourcefulness. Okay, let's make sure we document everything, Maria said, bringing the group back to focus. We'll create a timeline of events and gather testimonies. And remember, we're in this together. We have to protect each other. As they wrapped up, a sense of camaraderie filled the room, and Maria couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. However, just as they were about to disperse, the air shifted. A shadow loomed at the door, and Maria felt her heart sink. The imposing figure of a corporate security officer stood there, arms crossed, blocking the exit. Just what do you think you're all plotting in here? The officer's voice was smooth, but there was an edge to it that made Maria's skin crawl. The group went silent, eyes wide as they exchanged worried glances. With the walls of the break room closing in, Maria's mind raced. They had to think fast. This could jeopardize everything they were working for. Lyrics whispered urgently, "What do we do?" "Stay calm," Maria replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "We can't let them know what we're really up to." The officer stepped inside, scanning the room with narrowed eyes. "I heard some unusual chatter coming from this direction. You all wouldn't be conspiring against the company, would you?" Maria took a deep breath, forcing herself to stand tall. "No, sir. Just discussing today's routes and schedules." "Right," the officer sneered, clearly unconvinced. "I'll be watching you. Don't think for a second that I won't know if you step out of line." As he turned to leave, Maria's heart raced. They needed to be even more careful now. The stakes were higher than ever, but she felt an ember of determination within her. She wouldn't back down. They would fight for their rights, together. Once the officer was gone, the group began to murmur again, but Maria could sense the unease. "Don't let this discourage you," she urged. "We have a cause, and we're not alone. We can do this." As they left the break room, Maria felt the weight of her responsibility. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but she had allies now. They would gather evidence, make their voices heard, and perhaps, just perhaps, they would change the course of their future. With renewed resolve, they stepped into the bustling energy of the Galactic Transport Hub, ready to face whatever came next. As Maria and Lyrics concluded their meeting with the other drivers, a sense of urgency filled the break room. The warmth of camaraderie had ignited a spark in them all, but the looming presence of corporate security still hung over their heads like a storm cloud. Just as they began brainstorming their next steps, the door swung open with a loud bang. A tall figure in a crisp uniform filled the doorway, the emblem of Galactic Transit Authority emblazoned on his chest. It was Officer Jax, a security detail known for his no-nonsense demeanor and piercing gaze that seemed to see through walls of silence. The room froze as he surveyed the group, his expression hardening. "What do you think you're all plotting in here?" he barked, his voice echoing against the metal walls. Maria's heart raced as she instinctively took a step forward, feeling the weight of her newfound resolve. "Just discussing our schedules, officer," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "You know how it is, keeping everything running smoothly." "Right," Jax said, his eyes narrowing. "I've heard rumors about dissent among the ranks. Protests and grievances, they're making waves. I hope you're not involved in any of that nonsense." Lyrics shot Maria a look, silently urging her to stand her ground. Maria felt the tension in the air. This was a pivotal moment, and she needed to harness her courage. "We're just trying to do our jobs, officer. But if the policies are making it harder for us to provide safe transport, we have to address that too. Jax's expression darkened, and he stepped further into the room, filling the space with an air of intimidation. You'd do well to remember your place in this organization. Any talk of protests can lead to serious consequences. I'll be watching. His gaze swept the room, lingering on each driver, and Maria could feel the heat of his scrutiny. As he turned to leave, Maria's heart pounded in her chest. Wait, she called out, her voice cutting through the tension. If we don't speak up about these issues, who will? We're responsible for the safety of our passengers. Jax paused, glancing back at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. You think your voices can change anything? The decisions come from the top. You're wasting your time. With that, he exited, the door slamming behind him. The room erupted into hushed whispers, but Maria raised her hand to silence them. We can't let him intimidate us. He's just a pawn in a much larger game. Lyrics nodded, her eyes sparkling with determination. He's right about one thing, we have to be smart. Let's gather evidence while we still can. The group began to mobilize, and Maria felt a sense of momentum building. She knew they had to act quickly. We need to split up. Theo, Jenna, you two go to the shuttle pilots and see if they've noticed any discrepancies in their schedules. Oscar, can you check with the night shift drivers? They might have stories about late-night incidents that we can use. As they began to disperse, Maria felt a tug at her sleeve. It was Jenna, her expression filled with concern. What if we get caught? I don't want to lose my job. Maria placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. I get it. But if we don't take this risk, we're just letting them walk all over us. We have to protect our jobs and our passengers. The urgency of their mission propelled them forward. They gathered their phones, ensuring that each communication was encrypted and secure. Maria felt the adrenaline surge through her as she stepped outside into the bustling streets of the Galactic Transport Hub. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting hues of orange and purple across the horizon, and Maria felt the weight of the impending task resting on her shoulders. They needed to compile their findings and present a united front, but first, they needed evidence. As she and Lyrics made their way to the shuttle hub, Maria's mind raced. What if we find something big? Something that proves the corporations are benefiting at the expense of the people? Lyrics grinned, her enthusiasm infectious. Then we expose it. We can't let them hide behind their facade anymore. Arriving at the shuttle hub, the atmosphere was electric with activity. Shuttle pilots moved briskly between their crafts, prepping for the next round of flights. Maria spotted an old acquaintance, a pilot named Zara, and waved her over. Hey, Zara, got a minute? Zara approached, wiping sweat from her brow. Sure, what's up? You look like you're about to run a marathon. More like gearing up for battle, Lyrics chimed in, a sly smile creeping across her face. We need your help. As they explained their mission, Zara's eyebrows knitted together in concern. I've heard the whispers, but I didn't think it was this serious. What do you need? Any documents or reports that show discrepancies in schedules or incidents that don't add up, Maria said, leaning closer. We need to prove that these new policies are hurting service and safety. Zara hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. I might have something. Follow me. She led them to a small office tucked away from the main hustle, the air thick with anticipation. As Zara rummaged through a filing cabinet, Maria felt a thrill of hope. This could be the breakthrough they needed. With a triumphant smile, Zara produced a stack of papers. Here, these logs show missed pickups and delays. And look at this, there's a clause here that allows the company to cut costs by limiting staff during peak hours. Maria's heart raced as she flipped through the documents. This is gold. We can use this to show how the new policies are endangering passengers. As they gathered the crucial evidence, the door swung open, and before they could react, Officer Jack stepped inside, his eyes narrowing. What's going on here? Panic surged through Maria as she quickly hid the papers behind her back. Checking on schedules. Jax's piercing gaze locked onto her. You're not fooling anyone. I want to know what you're really up to. Maria steeled herself, feeling her inner strength surge. We're trying to do our jobs, officer. But if the company is compromising safety for profit, we have a right to know. Jax took a step closer, his expression a mix of anger and confusion. You think you can stand up against the authority? You're playing with fire. Maria's heart raced, but she stood tall, refusing to back down. It's not about fighting you, it's about protecting our passengers and our livelihoods. We won't be silenced. With that declaration, she felt a new sense of purpose wash over her. This was more than just a job, it was a fight for justice. As Jax opened his mouth to respond, the unmistakable sound of alarms blared throughout the shuttle hub, momentarily drowning out their conversation. The tension in the air thickened as Maria realized the urgency of their situation. They had to escape before they were caught red-handed with the evidence. Let's go, Maria hissed, grabbing Lyrics' arm. They sprinted past Jax as the chaos erupted around them, the alarm serving as a wake-up call to their mission. With the evidence in hand, they darted towards the exit, hearts pounding in unison. Their resolve had been tested, but now they understood that they were not just bus drivers or shuttle pilots, they were warriors of their own cause, ready to bring the truth to light. As they stepped out into the cool air of the Galactic Transport Hub, Maria felt a newfound strength surge within her. The fight was far from over, but now they had the tools to make a difference. Next stop, she whispered to Lyrics, determination etched on her face, a public meeting. We need to rally everyone to expose the truth. With their spirits ignited and the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders, they headed towards the horizon, the promise of change shimmering just ahead. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow across the Galactic Transport Hub, Maria felt the electric pulse of anticipation thrumming in her veins. The meeting room of the public assembly hall was packed, a sea of restless bodies shifting in their seats, their murmurs creating a low hum that filled the air. As she stood at the front, her heart raced, a mix of nerves and determination swirling within her. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Today, we're here to address the issues that have been plaguing our community and our jobs. We've gathered evidence that reveals serious discrepancies in the schedules and safety protocols that affect not only us but every passenger who steps onto our transports. She glanced at Lyrics, who was standing beside her, a supportive presence as always. The turquoise-skinned Nimbari offered a nod, her eyes bright with encouragement. Maria took a deep breath, ready to unveil the findings they had worked tirelessly to compile since their last meeting. As she shared their research, detailing the troubling patterns they had uncovered, a few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Maria could see some familiar faces, her fellow drivers, friends, and even some passengers who had been affected by the recent changes. They were all here for a common cause, and the weight of that unity filled her with hope. But just as she began to feel the momentum shift in their favor, the double doors swung open violently, and two representatives from the Galactic Transit Authority marched in, their expressions cold and calculating. One was a tall, angular figure in a sleek corporate suit, his hair slicked back as if to mirror the sharpness of his features. The other, a stout woman with piercing eyes, radiated authority and intimidation. Who authorized this gathering? The man barked, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a knife. You think you can just stand here and spread baseless accusations against the authority? We have a reputation to uphold. Maria's stomach twisted at the sight of them. We're not spreading accusations, she responded, her voice unwavering. We're here to ensure the safety of our passengers and ourselves. We've found evidence that suggests serious lapses in protocol that could endanger lives. The stout woman stepped forward, crossing her arms. Evidence? You think slanderous comments and hearsay constitute evidence? You're wasting everyone's time. Her tone dripped with disdain, a calculated attempt to undermine Maria's credibility in front of the audience. Is that what you call it? Maria shot back, her voice rising with passion. We've documented late-night incidents, miscommunication among drivers, and discrepancies in the scheduling system that raise red flags. This isn't just hearsay, it's a call to action. The room erupted in murmurs, some in support of Maria while others expressed doubt. The corporate representatives exchanged glances, and the tension in the air thickened. Maria pressed on, feeling the eyes of her peers on her, their faith in her igniting the fire within her. People are getting hurt. Just last week, a driver reported a malfunction that nearly caused a collision, she continued, her voice fierce. We're here to demand transparency and accountability, not to be silenced. The male representative scoffed, stepping closer to Maria, invading her personal space. You are risking your positions and your livelihoods. Who do you think you are? Just a bunch of drivers thinking you can challenge the system. Just a bunch of drivers? Lyrics interjected, stepping forward, her voice steady. We're not just drivers, we're a community. We've seen the issues firsthand, and we have the right to speak up. If we don't, who will? The audience stirred, a palpable wave of support washing over them. Maria could feel the shift, the tide turning as she locked eyes with her fellow drivers. They were all more than just cogs in a machine, they were individuals with lives, stories, and voices that demanded to be heard. The stout woman took a step back, her authoritative demeanor faltering slightly. This is not the way to address grievances. You're playing with fire, and it won't end well for you. As the tension mounted, a voice echoed from the back of the room, cutting through the confrontation. What if we take action together? What if we demand a meeting with the higher-ups? If we present this as a united front, they'll have to listen. The crowd buzzed with excitement, and Maria seized the opportunity. Exactly. If we stand together, we can show them that we're serious about these issues. We won't let them silence us. We're no longer just drivers, we're advocates for our safety and our passengers' safety. The corporate representatives exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from annoyance to concern. Maria sensed their unease, and it fueled her determination. We can gather our findings, present the evidence, and demand an official inquiry. Together, we can change the narrative. The crowd erupted into applause, voices rising in excitement as people stood up, rallying around Maria's call to action. The representatives from the Galactic Transit Authority, realizing they were losing control of the situation, exchanged hurried whispers before the male representative stepped forward again, trying to regain authority. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. A meeting will not change the operational protocols. You will not challenge the status quo, he warned, his tone stern. But Maria stood firm, her heart racing. We won't back down. Not now, not ever. If we don't take this chance, we're letting them dictate how we do our jobs. We owe it to ourselves and to every passenger who trusts us to fight for what's right. The atmosphere crackled with energy as the crowd rallied behind her, and she felt the weight of their collective determination. They were no longer just a group of drivers, they were a movement. As the meeting concluded, Maria stepped down from the makeshift podium, her heart pounding with exhilaration. She looked around at the faces in the crowd, each one filled with a mixture of fear and hope, and knew that this was just the beginning. In the days to come, tensions would escalate, and the stakes would rise as they faced the corporate giants head-on. But in that moment, they had ignited a spark, a fire that could not be easily extinguished. The future was uncertain, but together, they were ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. And as Maria walked back to Lyrics, she felt a sense of purpose and belonging that she had never experienced before. This was their fight, and they were ready to claim their place in the galaxy. As they exited the assembly hall, the air felt charged with anticipation, and Maria knew they had just taken the first step toward a revolution. The galaxy was watching, and she was determined to make her voice heard. Maria's heart raced as the corporate representatives glared at her, their presence casting a long shadow over the assembly hall. The murmur of the crowd swelled into a cacophony of voices, a mixture of fear and anger. The stakes were higher than ever, and Maria could feel the tension crackling in the air like static electricity. Listen, we'll not be silenced, she asserted, her voice steady despite the chaos. We need to hold ourselves accountable, and that starts with transparency. The passengers deserve better than this. The crowd seemed to surge forward, their shared frustration igniting a fire of solidarity. Maria could see the faces of her fellow drivers, friends who had spent countless hours together navigating the bustling streets of the Galactic Transport Hub. They were not just colleagues, they were a community facing a common enemy. But before she could elaborate further, Lyrics stepped forward, her turquoise skin radiating defiance. This isn't just about schedules and protocols, it's about lives. Her voice rang out clearly, cutting through the noise. If we don't stand up for ourselves, who will? We have families who rely on us. At that moment, the atmosphere shifted. A collective gasp rippled through the assembly as people turned to each other, weighing Lyrics' words. Maria felt a surge of hope. They were on the brink of something bigger than they had ever anticipated. Just then, a faint but distinct sound began to rise above the crowd, an ominous chanting. We demand safety. We demand change. The protesters outside had rallied, their voices echoing through the hall like an approaching storm. Maria exchanged a concerned glance with Lyrics. This was escalating quickly. Let's not forget, the tall representative interjected, his voice dripping with condescension. You're playing with fire. You think you can challenge an entire authority? You'll regret it. His warning hung in the air, heavy with threats. Regret? We've been living in regret for too long. Maria shot back, her voice rising above the din. We're not backing down. We're here to fight for our rights and our safety. The crowd erupted in applause, the sound washing over her like a wave of encouragement. The representatives stood frozen, their expressions shifting from contempt to disbelief. Maria seized the moment, eyes blazing with determination. If you won't listen to us here, we'll take this to the streets. We'll show you how serious we are. Suddenly, the atmosphere thickened with tension as the chanting grew louder outside. Maria could hear the shouts of solidarity reverberating through the hall. We demand safety. We demand change. Enough, the stout woman barked, her voice slicing through the noise. This is unacceptable. You're just inciting chaos. We will not tolerate this behavior. Chaos. The word echoed in Maria's mind, but what she saw was the exact opposite. She saw unity. She felt the weight of every person in that room behind her. We're not here to incite chaos, she replied, her voice steady. We're here to demand respect. Lyrics turned to Maria, her expression serious. We need to make a final stand. If this escalates, we need a plan to protect everyone. Her voice was urgent, filled with a new sense of purpose. Maria nodded, feeling the gravity of the situation settle over her. You're right, but we can't lose sight of why we're here. We need to negotiate, not just shout demands. We need to show them we're serious but also that we care about everyone involved, our passengers, our families. Lyrics took a deep breath, her eyes narrowing in thought. What if we create a human chain? Protect the passengers as we protest. Show them we'll stand together, no matter what. The idea struck Maria like a bolt of lightning. Yes, we can form a line in front of the doors. Keep the protest peaceful but powerful. If they try to push us back, we'll stand firm. As the noise outside intensified, Maria felt a renewed sense of determination surge through her. She turned to the crowd, raising her hands to capture their attention. Everyone, listen up. We need to stand together. Form a line in front of the doors, protect each other, and show our solidarity. The crowd erupted with fervor, moving quickly to form the line as Maria and Lyrics positioned themselves at the forefront. As they took their places, Maria felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She was not just a bus driver anymore, she was a leader, a unifying force in a moment of chaos. Together, Maria called out, her voice cutting through the rising tension. We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone who uses these transports. For every parent, every child, every passenger who deserves to feel safe. Just as they formed a solid line, the doors burst open, and the corporate representatives stepped in, flanked by security personnel. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as the crowd prepared to stand their ground. Enough of this, the representative shouted, trying to intimidate the crowd. You'll be removed from this facility immediately if you don't disperse. But Maria stood firm, her heart pounding. We're not going anywhere. We'll be heard. You can't silence us anymore. The crowd echoed her outburst, their voices merging into a single powerful roar. The representatives faltered, taken aback by the sheer force of unity shining through the assembly hall. Lyrics, now! Maria shouted, and the Nimbari nodded, already prepared. Turning to the crowd, she shouted, let's show them what we're made of. With that, they held hands, forming a human barrier, a living shield between the corporate representatives and the passengers. The energy in the hall shifted as onlookers joined in, their voices a symphony of solidarity. As the protest intensified, Maria felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This was not just a fight for their rights, it was a fight for understanding and empathy in a universe that often felt cold and indifferent. They were a community, standing together against the odds, ready to face whatever came next. But just as the crowd's momentum grew, Lyrics leaned in closer, her voice a soft whisper amidst the chaos. Maria, I need to tell you something. This isn't just a job for me. My family, they rely on me to make this change. Maria's heart sank as she realized the weight of Lyrics' words. This was personal for her friend, a fight not just for their community, but for her family's future. Lyrics, I promise we'll make this right. Together. In that moment, they both understood the importance of their mission, not just to demand change but to ensure safety and unity for everyone involved. As the protests surged, Maria felt the tide turning. They were ready to negotiate their future and ensure their voices were heard, no matter the cost. The next step awaited, and with it, the possibility of a new beginning for all of them. As the tension in the assembly hall thickened, Maria could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The crowd was restless, their collective determination radiating a palpable energy. She glanced at Lyrics, who stood resolute beside her, eyes aflame with passion. It was now or never. Together, we can forge a new path, Maria declared, her voice rising above the murmurs. If the corporate representatives refuse to listen, we'll show them that we are united in our demand for change. The crowd responded with a wave of approval, their voices rising in a unified chant. Lyrics stepped forward, her turquoise skin shimmering under the overhead lights. We need to take this beyond just words. Our lives are worth more than corporate profits. We deserve to feel safe while doing our jobs. The crowd erupted into applause, and Maria felt the adrenaline surge through her veins. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the culmination of their hard work and resilience. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. We need to prove that our demands are not just noise. We will create a human chain to protect our passengers and ourselves. We'll stand together, side by side, demonstrating our unity. Lyrics nodded, her expression fierce. Let's do it. We'll show them that we are not just bus drivers, we are a community, and we will not be pushed around. With a newfound sense of purpose, Maria turned back to the assembly. Everyone, if you believe in this cause, I need you to form a line in front of the doors. We will stand together to protect our rights and our passengers. The crowd surged forward, excitement buzzing in the air. Maria felt a rush of pride as her fellow drivers joined her in forming a human chain, their bodies creating a barrier of solidarity. Outside, the chanting grew louder, echoing through the hall, a reminder that their movement extended far beyond these walls. As they took their positions, the corporate representatives exchanged glances of disbelief. This is madness, the stout woman hissed, her voice trembling with anger. You cannot intimidate us with your childish tactics. Childish? Maria shot back, her voice steady. This is about standing up for what's right. We are not just workers, we are people with families who depend on us. We will not be silenced any longer. The atmosphere shifted, tension crackling like electricity. The representatives had underestimated the resolve of Maria and her community. The crowd outside continued to chant, their voices rising in a unified crescendo. We demand safety. We demand change. As the representatives hesitated, Maria seized the opportunity. We are ready to negotiate. But first, we need assurance that our voices will be heard and that our demands will be taken seriously. The lead representative scoffed, crossing his arms. You think you can just waltz in here and dictate terms? This isn't how things work. Then it's time for a change, Maria replied, her voice unwavering. We've lived under this outdated system for too long. We're not just numbers on a spreadsheet. We're the heart of this hub. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Maria felt a surge of hope. They were not just fighting for their own rights, they were standing up for every species that relied on this transportation system. Lyric stepped forward again, her voice carrying the weight of their shared experience. We've gathered evidence of the issues we face daily. Safety violations, unfair treatment, and a lack of proper training. We deserve to be heard, and we deserve better. The representatives shifted uncomfortably, glancing at one another as the crowd's energy intensified. We cannot ignore this, Maria pressed. If we do not reach an agreement today, we will escalate our protest. We will take our message to the streets, and the galaxy will see how serious we are. The stout woman's expression faltered, and for the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice wavered. Try us, Maria challenged, her heart racing. We're prepared to take this all the way. We'll gather more support, and we'll make sure our message is heard across the galaxy. The representatives huddled together, murmuring amongst themselves. Maria could see the tide turning. They were beginning to realize the power of the people they had underestimated for too long. Finally, the lead representative stepped forward, his demeanor shifting. Fine, we're willing to listen to your demands. But you must also understand that change takes time. Maria's heart soared. We understand that. But we need a timeline. We need accountability. Our lives depend on it. After a tense moment, the representatives nodded, and a tentative agreement began to take shape. They discussed the implementation of new safety protocols, training programs for drivers, and a committee comprised of both corporate and driver representatives to oversee these changes. As they hashed out the details, Maria felt a sense of triumph swell within her. This was not just a victory for her or Lyrics, it was a victory for everyone who had ever felt powerless. They had transformed their fear into strength, and their voices had been heard. When the negotiations concluded, Maria and Lyrics stood in front of the assembly, the crowd erupting in cheers. We did it! Lyrics exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with joy. Maria smiled, her heart swelling with pride. This is just the beginning. Together, we can continue to fight for what's right and ensure that our community thrives. As the crowd dispersed, Maria took a moment to reflect on her journey. She had started as a simple bus driver, navigating the bustling streets of the Galactic Transport Hub. But now, she was a leader, an advocate for her community. The experience had changed her, instilling a deep sense of purpose and belonging. Looking at Lyrics, Maria felt a profound connection. They had faced insurmountable odds together and emerged victorious. Thank you for standing by me, Maria said, her voice filled with gratitude. Lyrics grinned. We're in this together, Maria. Always. As they walked out of the assembly hall, the galaxy felt different. The stars shone brighter, and the air buzzed with the promise of change. Maria realized that every small action could lead to something monumental. In a vast galaxy, her role as a bus driver had transformed into something extraordinary, a beacon of hope for those who dared to dream of a better future. And together, they would continue to fight for that future, one bus ride at a time.